Um, okay, I guess we're starting soon, and it's completely all right because people can still come in along the way. But yeah, so hello everyone. Good evening. And I know it's 7 p.m. on a Friday night, so thank you so much for joining. And and before we start with the session for today, I would like to introduce very quickly about myself, my colleague, and the speakers for today. So I'm Sharon, and I will be the moderator for today. And I've got my colleague Widya, and I believe we've got Malia as well in this room. So, and I also would like to welcome you all. Thank you guys for joining. And I understand that we're not all from Manchester. So if you're not from Manchester, feel free to type in the comment section where you guys are coming from. Because I believe Widya told me that she had posted this information in another group as well. So it's gonna be interesting. And also, we have two incredible speakers for today, and we've got Nadia from Amazon, and we've got Tisha as well from EY. So thank you so much for allocating your time to have this session, to join in, and then eventually you guys will share your insights. So thank you so much, and nice to meet you as well. And last but not least, the rundown of this event will be Kanadia will share about her insights, her industry insights from Amazon, and then will be followed by Katisha as a second speaker, and then we're gonna have the question and answer session towards the end of this session. So if you have any questions along the way, you can easily type in the comment section, or you can keep it later if you want to, like, open mic or whatnot. And we're gonna have a photo session in the end as well, so do not leave because we're just gonna be here till like 8:30. Finger crossed it won't be at up until like 9 p.m. But yeah, that's a little bit of the introduction that I've got. And so, got an idea. You ready for the session?
Yeah, ready from
Oh,
my end.
okay, all right. Then, without further ado, I'll I'll invite Canadia, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Sharon. I think before we get started, I'll just briefly introduce myself and my background. My name is Nadia. I've been working at Amazon for just over a year, so a year and a couple of months. Before working at Amazon, I did my master's at University of Manchester on business analysis and strategic management. And before that, I was actually working at Shopee for just under 2 years with the Shopee export program and also in mall campaigns. So that's like a little bit about my background. Yeah, let's get started now. Next slide, please. Yeah, so we'll just start with just general on like what is Amazon core business. Amazon has a couple of different businesses. I'm sure a lot of people have already know that, but the business that I currently work in is e-commerce, and that's the only section that I'm familiar with. I don't actually know much about AWS, Amazon Music, Amazon Prime Video, or IMDb and all that. So the structure and the explanation of this of my section will be primarily based on the e-commerce. And I'm sorry in advance if I'm unable to answer questions that are not e-commerce, Amazon e-commerce related, because I'm not aware or don't know much about the other business sectors within Amazon. So in the e-commerce business, what we do is basically we're selling a service, and the service is a platform for big, small, or medium enterprises to sell their goods within the Amazon platform. And in addition to that, we also provide the fulfillment by Amazon, which is the logistics service where they're able to put in their stock into Amazon's fulfillment centers. And we are able to deliver to the end customers on next day delivery across the UK and also across the European countries. This is also applicable in other Amazon e-commerce businesses within the US, Japan, Singapore, and Australia. How do we make money from that? We basically charge our selling partners, big, small, or medium enterprises, for putting their products on the logistic network. And on top of that, we take a fraction of the sales revenue every time they make a sale or every time a customer buys their items from Amazon. So that's kind of like generally what we do in the e-commerce business and how it's run. Next slide, please. In terms of the corporate structure, again, as I previously have mentioned, I'm solely focusing on the e-commerce, and now I'm solely focusing primarily on the team that I'm in and how it's structured. I work for the Fulfillment by Amazon business, which is basically Amazon Prime. That's what customers know them for. And within that business, the structure is like we have a director, which is the FBA UK director. And under that director, you'll have different work stream owners. They're usually like head of that particular business that encompasses of like what Fulfillment by Amazon is. So one of the examples of the work stream will be domestic Fulfillment by Amazon. So this team takes care of basically all the selling partners that are based in the UK and selling only into the UK. We have another work stream example is like campaigns and deals. So this team basically handles like all the selling partners deals and campaigns that they want to run on the Amazon business. We also have the Prime EU network team or work stream is what we call it. And what they basically focuses on is like selling partners within the UK who are interested in selling in the EU countries. So one of the examples like France, Spain, Italy, Germany, and all those countries through the Fulfillment by Amazon network. We also have the Amazon Global Logistics work stream. And basically what they focuses on is that selling partners within the UK who are interested in selling in Amazon US, Australia, Japan, and Singapore. So those are like some of the workstream examples, and the leader sits directly under director. Under the workstream owners, we'll have account managers and program managers. And what's the difference between them two? The account managers are basically people who deals on a day-to-day basis with all the clients and selling partners, depending on what work stream they work under. So for example, in my end, I work in the domestic FBA business. And basically the account managers within my team handles UK selling partners with issues within the UK FBA business. And yeah, it just depends on what work stream they're on, but their role is primarily client facing and selling partner facing. For program managers, on the other hand, their role is primarily to fix or improve or innovate within the work streams. So they deal with like tech teams, operation teams, finance team, legal teams to work on a particular innovation that could help strengthen the work stream or make this work stream more optimized, more efficient, more profitable. And they usually liaise with internal teams to make the work stream better and make us more successful, essentially. So all those people then sit under each of the work stream and work on those work stream issues. So that is kind of like generally how Amazon is structured within the FBA business here in the UK. Next slide, please. Okay, now I'll go on to talk more about the pros and cons of working on Amazon. Just before I explain through the bullet points, I want to like say that this is my opinion. So take it with a grain of salt. People have different opinions on their experiences, and I'm just telling this based on my experience of working there for about a year and a bit. Some of the pros, one of them being obviously it is like one of the top tech companies. So you have exposure to very high talented people from across different schools, different degrees, different top schools around the world with different experiences. And if you're generally a very motivational, very like you're on top of your game all the time, it's actually a good culture because you always want to improve yourself and become a better version of yourself. And I personally like that. So I really like that. I'm constantly being pushed, even though sometimes I want to cry, but it's good. I know I'm improving myself and I know I'm growing in my career. Again, working, I think it's not really Amazon, but more like in any multinational companies, you'll be faced with a lot of multicultural people from all across the globe. So, you know, you'll be practicing like different language skills. For example, I often have meeting with people in China. That's the same case when I was working in Shopee as well. I still don't know Mandarin, but sometimes I understand what they're saying a little bit because I've just been exposed to those meetings where they're talking that language. So yeah, if that's something that you're looking forward to do, or you want, you know, to explore that or grow in that kind of environment, Amazon or in fact, any multinational companies will be great. The second pros is like the potential growth. Because Amazon is like a tech business, of course, they're largely on e-commerce. They do have other business streams as well. They have AWS, they have Prime Video, they have Amazon Games, they have Amazon Music, like all these other things that I don't even know about. They have that, and they're working towards that. They're now also releasing some AI business within AWS and within the Amazon e-commerce as well. So there's that work stream as well, if that's something that you're interested in. And I guess like if you want to explore in those kind of business lines, grow your skills, meet new people, it's a good place to be. And it's easy for you once you're in the door within Amazon to move around on all those businesses. So yeah, you can move vertically across the levels, become a director in your work stream, or you can also move horizontally across different teams within the same level, but you're exposed to different types of businesses and different sectors of tech, I guess. And I guess one of the biggest things that I find quite different with Amazon in terms of the pros is like they give you a chance to innovate and solve big problems, and capital is not usually the case, like an issue for them. So if you, let's say you find something that is very, like you have data to back that up and you want to fix that, you're able to write a doc, even though you're nobody isn't like you're still an L4 graduate level, you're able to write a doc, present it to your manager and get buy-in from your manager and all these stakeholders internally to push for that idea, that project, and get headcount for it. And I've seen that happening not only with like graduates level, I know interns does it as well, and they still get their work stream proposed, accepted within L8 director level for their work stream to go on. So I think that's one thing that I really like, and I don't see in my previous company having this, because it's usually capital is a problem, like they don't want to invest in it. But within Amazon, they give you the opportunity to do so. So those are like the little bit of the pros of working Amazon, in my opinion. In terms of like the cons or the downside, one of them is no major discounts. I know a lot of people, when they hear that I work at Amazon, they usually ask, so do you get like free Amazon Prime? No, I still pay £8, not the student fee anymore, unfortunately. So no discounts. They're very frugal. They don't even have that many socials. We don't get free food in the company. So we're a very frugal organization. We don't, they're very like cost conscious, I guess, very cost efficient, profit making, shareholder priority first, as opposed to costs. So they really minimize the costs at all sectors besides the innovation part. So when it comes to innovation, they will double down on it, but things like fun, discounts, they don't really do that. And another cons is that due to like the innovative nature, which can be a pro, as I mentioned previously, there will be instances in your role where you'll be facing a lot of ambiguity and don't know where to go, you don't know what to do. And that can be tough for some people, especially when you're like new or you're shy, you don't know who to talk to. But at the same time, that is like what you'll be facing most of the time. So if you're uncomfortable with dealing with ambiguity, anxiety, or like trying to get buy-in from internal stakeholders, it's going to be quite tough to survive in Amazon, frankly speaking. And on top of that, due to the nature of like how big the company is, there's a lot of duplication efforts and overlapping work streams across countries, across like even within the country itself. So sometimes when you're innovating something, but you don't really like put it out there, you don't promote it enough, you find out that someone else has done it and they get more buy-in from internal stakeholders than your project. But you're also working on it, you've already put effort, you've already, tried to like promote it. So that can be kind of annoying sometimes. And yeah, I think and the third one being is like it's very fast paced. As I previously mentioned as well, I used to work at Shopee and that was quite fast paced, but Amazon is next level fast paced. Things change within a day, within a few hours, and you have to adapt to it. And I think that adds up to the ambiguity nature of like the business. They always want to be forefront on everything e-commerce tech related. If they hear news about AI, they will double down on working on it and they will change current work streams to just fit into that AI nature because everyone's doing it, for example. So it is very fast paced, things change within hours, within days. And if you're someone who's uncomfortable again with dealing with changes in managers, changes in like team structure, it may also not be the best for you because I can guarantee you will have anxiety every day to work. You don't want to go to work and you end up resigning. And I've seen a lot of people, a lot of graduates especially, that has been in this position because Amazon is not a place where you can just sit down and just expect everything to be the same for the next year or so. Things change within a day or so, within a few hours sometimes from my experience. So if you're uncomfortable in dealing with those kind of situation, then I'm gonna say like it's probably not the best place for you. Just again, to put in the context of how extremely fast-paced and how much things has changed, I've only been in Amazon about a year and a bit, and I've changed managers 5 times and changed roles 3 times without my consent, as in like they've moved me around. So that is just some, like to put into picture of how fast-paced they are and how much things can change just within a span of like 14, 15 months. And yeah, the last but not least, last cons that I experienced, especially when I was a newly hired, I I entered as a direct hire, so I thank God I have some experience. So in terms of like politics, I kind of knew how it's usually already set up within these kind of businesses. But I found that with a company this big, in terms of the trainings and the setup that they give you when you're new, they don't really guide you a lot. So they kind of like just throw you into the waters for you to network with the right people, talk to the right people to get an insight of how it works in Amazon. And if you're someone, especially if you just like graduated from uni, you're used to being spoon fed with all the information and you know what to do next, it may be a struggle for you to kind of like get your feet up and running in Amazon because you do need to network with people to know what your job exactly is. Like you can't sit there and expect people to just spoon feed you. Here's the trading. Here's everything that you need to know. It's unfortunately it's not run like that. I had to learn the hard way because initially when I first started, I was like, you know what? I'm not that extroverted. I don't know anyone. I don't really want to talk or network with anyone. And I found myself in a spot where I'm like, I don't know what's going on with this company. Everything changes every day and I don't know how to keep up with the changes. And the way I changed that perspective is like, okay, you know what? It's if the company is like this, I'm gonna play the game. I have to suck it up and start being more extroverted, network with more people, talk to more people, know what's going on. So I'm always on top of things. So if there are some major changes within director level, I'm aware of it and I know what to do to put myself in the best position as possible without it being too kind of anxious in those kind of situations. So yeah, those are like a little bit of the pros and cons. If anyone has other questions, I'm welcome to ask that in the Q&A session. Next slide, please. Now we'll go into kind of like the insights into the daily work. Yeah, I think this is like roughly how my day tend to go. Usually on the beginning of the week, I'll start my day with like internal team catch up within my work stream to just discuss what my priorities are for the week and if there's any support needed from the team or from myself, if the team can help me with that. And then following that, I would have project catch-ups with all my internal stakeholders. So I'm working on a couple of projects. I usually have catch-ups with all the internal stakeholders within the project to see, like, again, discuss priorities for the week and also any other points that we discussed previously that needs follow-up. And usually after like all those catch-up meetings, I would just go onto my email, work on certain presentation or docs that I'm working on, sometimes even preparing for like all the meetings that I'm going to have in the afternoon. Midday, I'll have lunch. And then after lunch, it's usually more heavily focused on like performance meetings. So we'll have a reporting deck where we give updates to managers about like the business, how we're doing versus plan, how much money we've been making, are we even making money? And also like similar kind of meetings with all the project stakeholders where I'll talk about like how the project is going, what's next, what's the priority for the week, how far are we to get that priority done. And yeah, and then usually just after all that meeting and a performance meeting related, we'll go on to work on the next steps as a result of what we've discussed. So let's say if we are behind plan on something, like how are we going to double down to call back on the plan before the next week starts. And then usually I try to log off at 5 or 5:30, but if it's not done, maximum be 6. I don't work after 6. No one works after 6, even though it's a hardcore company in Amazon. People just log off after 6. So yeah, that's just a little bit of how my day is usually are during the workday. Next slide, please. Yeah, now talking about the work culture, and the reason why I posted Amazon leadership principles is because everything they do within Amazon is based on all these 15 leadership principles. It's to the point where it's kind of like a Bible. They live by it. All your performance review is based on how good you are in showcasing these 15 values, and they will literally rank you based on like how strong you are in all these 15. So their culture is literally this 15. I'm not going to go into details about what they actually are. I've inserted a link at the bottom for if anyone's interested in Amazon to actually go through it or are preparing for an interview in Amazon to actually kind of internalize that, because when you're going for the interview, these are the things that they will look for in terms of like your behavioral. And that goes with the phone interview, loop interview, and also the online assessment. So if you're interested in working for Amazon, I would recommend just checking the leadership principle, learn a little bit about what they are, because it's literally our Bible and we live by it on a day-to-day basis. We live and breathe these leadership principles, and it builds everything in terms of the culture within Amazon itself. Next slide, please. Okay, I think it's the last one. In terms of required skills, it obviously depends on like your role, and also like your work streams. But within the e-commerce and like sales related roles, obviously one of the skills that they look for is someone who's good at building relationship and driving growth with like clients, partners, and also internal stakeholders. So it's good that you have a client-facing role, because you will use that as well to get buy-in with internal stakeholders to sell your projects and get approval. I think strong interpersonal skills are very important. Emotional intelligence are very important. It's, like I said, fast-paced business. You can't take anything personally. You have to learn to kind of like take it in, work on it, and just move on, rather than like, oh my God, this team is so mean, or like this project manager is so harsh on me. Like, you just have to brush it off and move on. And being able to do that will kind of get you so far in Amazon. Negotiation skills also very, very important. You might think that this is primarily to sell your stuff to your clients or the selling partners, but to negotiate with internal stakeholders to get buy-in, to get funding, and to just get your project approved is very important for you to, like, if you want to succeed in this role. Experience in e-commerce and retail will be very advantageous as well. I think if you have some experience of knowing generally what the KPI is within these type of businesses will be useful, because it's literally the same. We care about money. That's all we care about. We care about selling a lot of stuff and making more money out of it. And on the other hand, when you're a program manager, you care about cutting the costs. So efficiency, that's all we care about. Yeah, we do face a lot of like SQL database, CRM tools for our day-to-day. If you're in a more client-facing role, you'll be using a lot of Salesforce, for example, to deal with the clients. If you're more in the internal role, like program manager role, you'll be facing a lot of SQL and databases to make your decisions and improve your projects. And yeah, lastly, obviously proven ability to successfully influence at all levels within an organization, particularly at executive level, to kind of sell your projects. I think that's very important. I guess if you're entering as a graduate, you might not have that, but I think having that certain influences or experiences in student organization or like in work projects would be very useful once you enter Amazon moving forward. So yeah, that is a little bit about Amazon and myself. If there's any questions, happy to take that in the Q&A.
All right. Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Ka. I mean, okay, it's actually, I would say it's jaw-dropping, because fun fact, we were actually working at the same company back in Indonesia, one of the leading e-commerce, and to me, that was like fast-paced. And you just mentioned that Amazon is like, I don't know, 10 times more than that. Wow, I have so much respect for you. And I think if I were to highlight everything that you've mentioned, I would say, I think, being agile, you have to be very flexible and in everything, really. Oh my gosh. But okay, I mean, I personally have a lot of questions, but I'm going to keep it to myself first, because we have the second speaker. But again, thank you so much, Kanadia. And we're going to move forward with Katisha from EY, Ernst& Young, and then we're going to have the question and answer session all together. All right. So the floor is yours, Katisha.
Thank you, Sharon. So, hi everyone. My name is Tisha, and I currently work as a senior data analyst in Ernst& Young. It's been almost 4 years now in EY, and so I started in the graduate scheme for audit, so the UK and Ireland audit, and I have just recently moved to data analytics in September. So if that doesn't tell you that EY's careers are yours to build, that's what they say. That will just tell you can pretty much, do whatever you like with an EY, as long as it's within reason and as long as it goes through your development. So yeah, next. Right, so this is just a quick agenda of what we'll run through today. But yeah, I will go through it quite quickly because there's just quite a lot of content. But if there's anything more specific, anything at all that you needed more clarification on, feel free to reach out to me. I'm sure you can easily find me on LinkedIn or like my email or whatever. I think my LinkedIn is connected to my email, so that will go straight to my inbox. So yeah, next please. And this is just an intro to what EY is for the ones who don't know, and then the industry that we will sort of focus on, but we will focus on other areas in the business as well. So EY is commonly known as part of the Big Four, so one of the Big Four. So you've got PricewaterhouseCoopers, which is PwC, Deloitte, and then KPMG. And what we do is pretty much really similar from all of those four companies. You do financial services, basically anything from business advisory to audit to other financial services like mergers and acquisitions to sustainability on climate change and to law. There is some business laws context in there as well. And then our clients in the UK, we pretty much range, and all over the world really, but we range from a lot of listed companies, really big companies like Amazon, like Coca-Cola or Google, I think, and Microsoft, to small private companies, just like really small businesses around Manchester or in Indonesia or whatever. And then to just introduce what consulting is, who might not be in the business area. Consulting is basically just providing advice to a lot of businesses to basically achieve their goals. So if they have a goal or if they have sort of something that they want to implement in their business, they take an EY to consult on these projects. And that's why it's projects based. So at a time, and this is common within EY for a lot of the different business areas. You work in projects basically. So like say you're in the Coca-Cola engagement, they call it engagements. So you're in the Coca-Cola engagement and you'll look at like things around Coca-Cola. And then if you're in, say, like the Amazon audit, then you'll work on like just Amazon. It's one at a time. And then your project sort of change throughout the year, throughout the month, if it's just a short project. But sometimes it lasts around, a month to like 2 months. It could be like half a year, depending on the project. And it is varied scope as well. So it could go anywhere, from, okay, I want to implement this new technology in my warehouse to something like, oh, we're facing this very difficult law case. Can EY law help us with this business law case? Something like that. It just everything here in between. So yeah, and then in the next slide, I think we'll run through quickly around, I'm not too sure what's the next slide is actually. Oh, by the organizational structure. Yeah, there you go. So next, please. And this is pretty much just like the big areas within EY. So within them, there's quite a lot of other smaller areas. But the main thing is assurance, consulting, strategy and transactions, tax, CBS, which is core business services, and sustainability, and then law. So where I started and where I'm still in now is in assurance. So I start in UK and Ireland audit, and then I move down to data analytics. And a lot of like the data analytics role for me, it sort of bridges assurance and consulting, to be fair, and so well technology consulting, because it's just, yeah, sometimes it sort of meddles around the business areas and it's not that clear cut, but your teams essentially will be your titles would be like based around these themes. Yeah, and then these are like the little business areas under them. So yeah, in assurance, it's mainly the audit. And then consulting, you have like all types of consulting. So you have like business consulting, and within business consulting, there's like loads of different areas divided into like different industries. So say like, oh, you're in retail business consulting, then you will only work with like retailers, sort of like say Tesco or like Sainsbury's. And then actuarial, we actually do have quite a big actuarial pensions sort of business area. And I don't know if any of you here studies, actuarials, but a lot of graduates who studied actuarials at uni actually do go to the Big Four to do like pensions calculations and things like that. And then technology consulting is very technology based, and this is like where companies are dealing with, like, say, cyber security issues or implementing new systems and things like that. And then we've got one of the more popular, I would say, around EY is the strategy and transactions. So you look around mergers and acquisitions, advisory, restructuring, corporate finance, and then of course you've got tax, and yeah, it's just basic tax. So all kinds of tax from, I want to open a new company in this country. How do I arrange my tax compliance and everything, to tax reporting. And then CBS is the EY's internal back office function. So if you can work in, like, say, HR and corporate finance, but it's like EY specific, basically. Sustainability, this is a new sort of business area that just came about, actually. And this has a lot to do with sort of climate change and sustainability consulting. But it is its own specific area, and they deal with, a lot of like climate issues, climate advisory cases and stuff like that. And then there's law. And this is just sort of advisory, but sort of very law related. So like if a business is facing like a big legal case or anything that needs sort of advice on, they can reach out to EY for it. Yeah, and then we'll go on to the next slide. And this is just an example work schedule. And within EY, some projects might be like the same day to day. So you sort of like work on your own cases, on your own projects, on tasks. But there might be a day where this is like completely thrown out of the picture and you have like so many meetings in a day. So this is just like what a typical, I would say, like a typical Wednesday for me looks like when it's not a Monday and it's not a Friday. You log in for the day at 9 a.m. and EY actually has a flexible sort of work start time. So there's some people who start at 10, some people who start at 11:30 and finish later, some people who start at 8 and then they finish at like 4. But the EY business core hours is pretty much like 10 to 4, I think. So ideally you should be like reachable within those 10 to 4. But it's not like a must. It's very flexible within EY. Like if you need to do anything within the day, you can just, speak to your line manager and be like, hey, I have this. Can I just drop out for like an hour and then come back? It's all totally fine. But yeah, you start the day with usually sort of a team catch up. And this doesn't happen like every day, just depending on the project. You speak about, again, like Nadia mentioned before, sort of like your priorities for the day, sort of like what you're going to work on during the week. You just catch up with everything in your project just to make sure that you're up to date with what needs to be done that week. And then you move on to like doing your tasks, and you're just sat at your desk and focus as much as you can. But it's very hard to focus in the EY office because everyone just comes to you usually in the office and just chat and yeah, just spill tea. But and then yeah, usually you'll have some kind of call with the client, and this usually happens either once or maybe never in the week. It could be just like once a week meeting with a client, just a catch-up call, just depends on the projects. And then you'll have an hour for lunch and then move on to like the afternoon. You'll basically just work on your tasks again. And I've put sort of like major like common tasks in these sort of like examples. So you might be reading like industry reports, or you might be like doing a memo and completing a work paper or anything like that. Just depends on the project. And then usually then you'll have sort of like a catch-up call either in the afternoon, just to say like how you've been getting on during the day, if you needed any help, or if someone else in your team sort of needs any help, then you'll just jump in on a quick Teams call. And then you just sort of work around your tasks towards the end of the day, and it's up to you, like whether you want to log off at 5, log off at 5:30, log off at 4, just depending on how busy it is during the day. Next slide, please. And then this is just, I guess, common work culture around like EY and also the Big Four. And you will find this very common around finance as well. You basically work in teams. The teams is structured when you start as an associate, and then it goes up to a senior associate, and then an assistant manager, senior manager, director, and then partner. And that is how almost all teams within EY is sort of structured. They're all sort of called the same thing. So say like if you're a data analyst, you'll be called like a senior data analyst. If you're in audit, it'll be called audit senior. There is no like fancy business names around it. So you should know who to like contact within your teams, I guess. And each team would always have either a manager or a senior manager, and then we'll always have like a leading senior who you, on day to day, you sort of like go in and out. Speak to them, ask them about like what else you need to do, things like that. There's quite a lot of support and coaching around the team, especially when you start off as a graduate. You don't go in blind. There are people within EY, not gonna lie, literally who have no clue what they did at uni, or like people who studied music and somehow ended up in EY. There's loads of people who have never essentially worked in sort of a corporate environment. You do get quite a lot of coaching from the start, just in terms of like business background and like day to day, how you should like write a report, or like how this memo should look like, things like that. But they're also heavy on like the development opportunity. So like if they see that you're able to support yourself and like support the rest of your team, then they put you up for it. So the senior might sometimes, oh, you've done this before, can you coach so and so? And it gives you sort of the opportunity to just be like, to step in. And I will get to that. I just saw that little thing. But yeah, no, I will get to that. So just step into the team and sort of help each other if you want to show that you're capable of doing more, basically. Social events, we're very big on social events. You know what they say in finance, work hard, play hard. So yeah, EY has quite a lot of social events, from like, end of audit team meals or end of project team meals to sort of, I don't know, like our summer party. This year it's a Gatsby gala. Don't know what I'm going to wear for that, but it's sort of like a black tie, a ball event. It's very fancy. We have a lot of dinners, a lot of socials where it's just like even pizzas on Fridays or something. A lot of events. But like I said, work hard, play hard, and it's not always a typical 9 to 5. So my schedule before, if that's a busy season schedule, goes out of the window most of the times. It just depends on like how resourceful the team is, sort of like how big your team is. Sometimes you're literally like the only staff on it with a senior and a manager, then you have a lot of like tasks to do. There are other teams where the projects are quite big and you work with 20 people. So everyone focus on their own thing. And that's fine. Usually it's just dependent on like resources at the time. So if, for example, if a project comes about, suddenly, say we didn't even know that this project was coming along, but this business needed this done, then those sort of projects tend to be like very fast paced and very deadlines heavy. And so that, yeah, sometimes that 5 o'clock will be a 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, just depends. But it's not all the time. It's very seasonal, and it's in consulting especially. Sometimes it just depends on like when the project comes through, and when the client needs it, basically. It's a very relaxed office environment, to be fair, in EY. So right now, I don't go in every day to the office. I go in like every 2 days in the office per week. I go on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then the rest, it's up to you whether you work in the client side. If you needed something from the client, you can literally go directly to your client and be like, hey, I'm going to show up in your office. Please give me this, this, this. We need it by today. Then you can be there with them. Or you can work from home if you really need to focus on something, or you had like a dentist appointment or a doctor appointment. It's really up to you. We also don't wear suits or anything like that in the office. I know some people say, oh, if you work in finance or whatever, do you wear like formal wear all the time? No, we don't. I wear my Converse and Levi's to the office. Just depends. Obviously, when you show up to like client site, it just depends on how the client is dressed as well. And yeah, like I said before, it's very flexible in terms of working arrangements. Yeah, you could just do whatever as long as you let the manager know and they're okay with it. So yeah, next slide, please. And this is just quickly on the required skills on what essentially you need to get into EY, or like what they look for in interviews or assessment centers, or the online tests that you do in EY when you apply. Quite a lot of agility and adaptability. Like I said, you're moving on from projects to projects, engagement to engagement, different businesses all the time. So in my 4 years at EY, I don't think my year has been the same. There's always something new that comes up. I've worked in big sort of listed jobs that are in the FTSE 100 and the stock exchange, but also then, smaller companies. You have to be adaptable and just embrace it, I guess. And then the next is just analytical skills, really, just qualitative, like being able to read a report, and quantitative, just looking at a financial statements or any sort of data that is numerical, and you'll be okay with it to like sort of interpret it. Financial maths, very basic, like nothing complicated, unless you're going to like say actuarial, which is very like, heavy based on like skills and technicals. And then, oh, I think the slides have gone. And then, yeah, so I'm not too sure where I was. Cool, we're back, no worries. And then problem solving as well, just, yeah, making sure that you know how to deal with problems when they arise, just working on it on your own, and then maybe reaching out to like a senior, just making sure that you involve the right people and trying to just get to a solution. Teaming and collaboration, very heavy on this. You need to just have interpersonal skills and be able to bounce off people and work with people all the time. Just because no projects within EY will be alone. Like, you will work with someone in your team direct. Like, there's always someone in your team. There's a manager that is telling you to do stuff. There's a staff that you will delegate to when you're a senior. You just need to be able to handle people. Concise writing and communication, you have quite a lot of client-facing role. It is a very heavy client-facing role. You are talking to CFOs and, financial directors sometimes. You're in boardrooms. You have to be able to sort of communicate clearly and just, write a memo very concisely to get to the point, basically. basic IT and digital skills. This is just if you're just in consulting, like Microsoft, all good. Like, I don't think you need to know anything crazy in terms of like IT skills and digital, unless you're going to like say technology consulting or data analytics. But even with that, I went to data analytics not knowing anything, and I've just picked up coding as I go, and that has been fine with them. So they haven't had any problem with that. So yeah, EY is very like open to you learning stuff, as long as you are open for it as well. Uh, yeah, and industry specific knowledge and skills, and this is just where it is very specific and like heavy. So like say sustainability and actuarials or corporate finance, sort of like, debt recovery, things like that. You need a little bit more sort of knowledge behind you to just be able to pass the application tests or the interview. So yeah. Next slide, please. And this is the pros and cons. So hopefully whoever mentioned in the comment before wanting to speak about perks and benefits, hopefully I'll try and mention it here. Great stepping stone for CV. Just getting your CV have an EY sort of name in it is very good to just like get jobs after EY. So say like if EY is not really what you want and Big Four or finance is not really what you want, it is still a very good sort of entry to like the business world and the finance world, just because it is very well known. It is like a global brand. I mean, just to put in perspective, as soon as I turned into a senior within EY, I have like messages on LinkedIn of just like recruiters trying to like recruit me to like other jobs outside of EY. So it is very now it's very good for like network building as well. You get to know quite a lot of people in EY, very important people. Like I've sat in boardrooms with CFOs and financial directors who know my name. You introduce yourself, you go into a room, and it's these big dogs from these big companies. You get to know them. If you ever wanted to like reach out to them for a job, you may connect with them on LinkedIn, and they probably might remember you. Who knows? Because of the project length, usually within EY, you are with these people like every week. You have a meeting with these people every week. It is a good foundation to like build network. Career progression and opportunities. And this is just because EY in itself has so many areas that you can move into. So like those career progression opportunities points and the internal and international transfers go hand in hand. So if what you're looking for is, okay, I want to start with an EY, but I don't necessarily want to stay in audit. I mean, that wasn't my goal, but it ended up being sort of what I wanted towards the end of like my graduate scheme. And that was very easy for me to like move into data analytics, for example. I don't have a background in data analytics. I don't really, know anything about coding or any data related stuff before I joined data analytics, but just because I was in EY and I have had talks, have chats with some people in data analytics, they were like, oh, Tish, like, of course, like come to data analytics, why not? Try something new. And that was very easy. It was such a casual conversation. If you really want it, then we'll try to give you it, basically. With the international transfers point, EY actually have a mobility program. So if you know, there's EY literally everywhere. So a lot of people within EY can work on projects that are abroad for say like half a year or a year. And then come back to like their home office. And this is usually for the UK, it's usually Australia or like Canada or the US, just because we have a lot of like companies in common. So like things that we audit are usually the same. So like we audit Odeon Cinemas, if you don't know. So like their headquarters is in the US. And so I've worked in the audit for that. And then my manager, she was like from the US. So she's come to the UK from the US just solely because she said, oh, I could work on this audit from the UK. So she moved. I've had friends who moved to like Australia, things like that, and it was very easy for them. Again, it's just sort of like if you have a business case to do it, you will get it. And then hybrid and remote working, again, you don't have to be in the office like at all if you don't really need to. Like you can literally put a business case saying, okay, like I can't be in the office because of so and so. They also do sort of like a working abroad policy. So the working abroad policy is basically your home office will be the UK, but you can spend 20 days working, say, in Indonesia. And that is just if you have like legal right to work in the country. So like I can go to Indonesia and basically work from there because for tax purposes, it's all okay. The benefits package with an EY, I mean, just other than salary or bonus and whatever, but we have relationships with a lot of businesses. We get discounts. So, we get loads of discounts. We can buy like a cinema ticket from Odeon for £5 because we audit Odeon. Yeah, there's little benefits like that. We have like, a private health insurance if you really want to. And then a dentist, like a dental health insurance. EY also pays for like, in terms of visa related stuff, EY pays for like all your visa fees except like your IHS. So the IHS you pay yourself, which is the international health surcharge. But everything else EY pays. If you do move to EY from like a different country, say like, oh, you've lived in Indonesia, you say after uni, you move back to Indonesia and then you get a job with EY UK and then you come back, they will give you like temporary accommodation to like, just look around for houses and just make sure that you're settled in, things like that. They don't do that if you're already in the UK. So, but yeah. Yeah, but if there's anything more specific in terms of like perks and benefits and stuff like that, I'm open to like questions. And then in terms of cons, like I mentioned before, it's very seasonal within EY. So busy seasons are a big thing. Whether it's in M&A, like mergers and acquisitions, consulting, or assurance, there's always deadlines if a client really wants something done at a certain date. So, the closer it is to the deadline, the busier that you will get. There are some jobs where it's just very heavy in busy season. So like every week you're sort of almost busy just because of like the scope of, the business and things like that. And when that happens, it is very fast paced and very high pressure. It's not very internal deadline, so it's very external. So like some of these companies have to report to the stock exchange by April or by May, and so you have to get the work done by May. So like listed companies, they have to put out their annual reports, the big glossy financial statements, if you ever know that, like by April. So you need to be able to just meet the deadlines by then, or else the company will be fined. And then in terms of firm politics, there is some of it with an EY. You have to know the right people if you really want to move up really quickly, vertically, horizontally. But then it comes to your charisma and your sort of communication skills. You have to be able to communicate on what you want. If you are comfortable staying where you are, then that's fine. But if you really want to move up, really want to move like into a different place, and just make sure that you have the best projects around and the best people around you, you have to really speak up for yourself. Just because there's quite a lot of people within EY, you have to like sort of stand out, I guess. Traveling. Sometimes, well, this is a con for me because I don't really like traveling within the UK. I hate being on trains for a long time, and yeah, sometimes I have to, like, sometimes for training I have to go to like Newcastle, or like if I go down to London, it's just quite tiring, But everything is paid for, like for UI. Like, you know, if you also work outside of like your home city, so like my home city is Manchester. If you work, say, in London, you get like a meal or a dinner allowance. So you get to like buy dinner up to like £50 or something on EY. Everything is paid for, but yeah, sometimes it's just tiring, you know. But I guess that could be a pro as well. So next slide, please. And this is just application timeline if any of you are interested in trying out, you know, a career with an EY, or just even try out a summer internship or anything like that. One summer internship, I think, lasts about 4 months, 3 months, I think, in the summer. Yeah, so I think the relevant schemes that are relevant to students, graduates, would be summer internship, industrial placements, and the graduate schemes. So summer internships is just, I think, usually it's advisable to do summer internships between your second and third year of university, and you basically just spend 3 months working in UI, doing whatever. And then industrial placements is a year-long sort of like scheme, and I think you have to have already like a scheme within your university degree. So like some university degrees in Manchester or anywhere else in the UK would have something like industrial placement like scheme. So I think if your course is 3 years, you probably aren't on an industrial placement scheme. But for people who are on an industrial placement scheme, that you can sort of apply to EY for that 1 year industrial placement where you go out to industry and work. And then the graduate scheme is basically 3 years for audit, and then I think there will be like some business areas where it's 2 years, but I'm not too sure on that because I think consulting is also 3 years. But in the graduate scheme, you have to like do other certifications. So say like audit, I'm a chartered accountant now because I have to take like the accountancy exams. And then if you're in consulting, you do SEMA. Some of you might not have heard of that, but it's basically like a certification for like just saying that you are a certified consultant and you can consult on like businesses, basically. And then the application stages, yeah, so August is usually where you can go on the UI website and say, oh, our sort of applications are opening in September. Do you want to register your interest? Put in your email here. And then they will like notify you by email when applications open. And then September is when applications open. And this is just if you search up EY careers, like it will show up with a list of like the stuff that they have open for. And then usually if you do apply, you fill in a form, and then you go, you know, sort of do the online assessments. And it's usually a 3 to 6 weeks turnaround. For me, it was very quick. It was 4 weeks. And I couldn't really believe it. Like I did my online applications, did my online assessments, and they took a while between the online assessments and the assessment center. But they told me, oh yeah, you can go to the assessment center. Please pick like a city that you need to go to, and then you can just attend that event. And then from the assessment center to the interview was about like a week. So yeah, it was very fast. And then in these applications, they basically go through like math-based activities or very case studies based. So they will give you a case, and then you'll have to like write up stuff or interview people or speak to someone about something. And then they have the situational judgment tests as well. And that is basically where you just sort of take an online test or like a multiple choice test on like if this happens day to day and this scenario happens, you know, what would you do? And that is how they test your skills, whether you are fit for UI or not. And so that's very important to just sort of get in the door. So I think that's the end of my slides, but yeah, I don't know if there's anything else after that. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's for me.
Right. Thank you, Katisha. Oh my gosh. I mean, from my understanding, consulting is hardcore as well as e-commerce. But the way you presented, it was like, yep, it's cool, so that's pretty amazing. And one thing that I learned is that so you are not required to graduate from like a specific course, but then you need to learn along the way. You need to have that willingness to learn along the way. So that's very interesting. Okay, so now it's already eight something, and we're gonna have the question and answer session. So if everyone has a question, feel free to ask. Say we're having three questions for this. Does anyone want to ask? You can ask in the comment section, or if you want to open mic, that's possible as well. Or if not, I'm gonna be the one asking a lot of questions because I have a lot of questions right now. Does anyone want to ask their questions? I mean, we've addressed one question. That was, yeah. Does anyone want to ask? Ooh, okay, Aska. Hello, hello.
Hello, guys. I'm interested in EY selections, EY recruitment. So recently, the last week, the UK government changed the new immigration policy, which increased the salary threshold up to max around 39,000. With this case, is EY still sponsoring the graduate schemes?
Yes, they would be. Although EY has some kind of like special thing going on if you are in the required sort of skills work. So I think the government has a list of like, if you are an accountant, you should get this much and so and so. And so that band depends on like the skills that you need or like what you go into EY to. So if it's I don't think advisory is within the required skills, but maybe it is. But I know that like accountancy or audit or actuarial is. So it will have some kind of band and somehow it will sort of meet that band, even if they don't like they have a reason why. Like, I mean, I'm sure as a business as big as EY, like they would have to comply with a lot of policies to recruit international students and issue like sponsorships to people with international visas. So yeah.
Right, yeah, I've actually heard about all this threshold, but I'm very green about it, which I think, no, actually, there were several sessions provided by the university talking about all these. But yeah, it's our own homework to kind of like familiarize with all of these. But thank you so much for the question. Does anyone have another one? Or maybe can I ask one question before? Oh, okay. Wait, let me. Okay, someone asked. Oh, okay. It's about Amazon. Oh, okay. Right. I mean, that was very mind-blowing. The fact that within 1.5 year you had like five managers. So, um, oh yeah,
That's a very good question, actually. It's like
it
asking me,
is.
why am I still here? But I guess like people have different reasons why they want to stay. I think Tisha mentioned a good point earlier with like the pros of working in EOS because of the name. And that's the same with Amazon. I think Amazon was like a big company, one of the top tech companies. So people would just stay there and like work for it, regardless of whether they being moved and change managers a couple of times. And I can see that as also an opportunity because when you're moving managers, you meet new people, you get more stakeholders for your promo. Because in Amazon, in order to get promoted, you do need about 6 to 7 stakeholders internally that will vouch for your promotion. So it's not merely hitting your KPIs. So I guess like the plus side of like having change managers, I get to know a lot more people and a lot more other teams who are working on a lot more different projects that from the previous one that I was working on, and kind of that helping network and get new people to add into my stakeholder list if I were to decide to go for a promotion. Another thing I think that is also related to kind of like the payment scheme, we have the share. So we get stocks vested every 3 years. So a lot of people tend to stay until 3 years to get their like the large amount of stock vested into their accounts. So it is also financially driven why they want to stay in Amazon. But I think it depends. For me, to be like very brutally honest, I'm tied on a visa. Amazon sponsors my visa. I think Amazon, like, it's a big company, it's a good company, it's one of the top tech. It is hard, but I feel like the exit opportunities is huge. They pay a lot too, so I have no reasons to leave. And I feel like I quite enjoy working in that kind of culture, like moving, fast-paced, being exposed to new things, working on bigger, newer, innovative projects. So it is a bit of a pain. It is a bit of like anxiety when it happens, but for me, it's worth like the other compensation that they give, and also like the benefit later on in the future if I decide to leave. I don't know if that answers your questions.
All right, thank you, Rafit, for the question to ask. And does that answer your question? But thank you so much, Nadia. I mean, wow, yeah, there's always two sides of everything, really. Okay, do we have another question? Or can I just ask one question that you guys perhaps can share about the work-life balance? Because I don't know, is it a myth or is it a fact? I mean, I understand you told us about your schedule and all that, but yeah, what do you guys think about the work and culture in here? Feel free.
Okay,
Do you want
I'll
to
start.
go? Do you want to go?
Okay. I think the work-life balance is actually much, much better than working in Indonesia, despite like the fast pace and like the intense culture during, let's say, busy seasons. I think it's because there's a common understanding within like British culture that like you have a life outside your work. So work is like 9 to 5, 9 to 6. And then other than that, if you have other things or other priorities, especially if it's like family related or social, like friends related, they are okay with letting you prioritize that. For example, like some last year I had to take some more annual leave because I had to visit my family, as I've not gone back to Indonesia in a while. They were happy to give me like 5 more days without putting it into like my annual leave tracker thing. So I think work-life balance personally for me it's good. And I think also it's within yourself as well, being able to kind of segregate that. There are some people who literally put their life into their work. They'll double down on it just for the sake of like, I don't know, like different priorities, I guess. For me, I really value my friendships, I value my family, so I have that barrier. And on top of like the British culture of supporting that, I guess that helps in building that as well.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, it's the same for me. I think it just really depends on like how you put boundaries around like your work life. When I joined EY, it was COVID. So basically I was at home, working from home. Me going into that was quite difficult, and trying to put a boundary into like, okay, that's done, like my work is done, because I was home alone. Like I could literally just go on my laptop and finish it off if I wanted to. And I think because of that, and also I just joined EY, so I really wanted to like impress. And so my work life balance got really bad. I think just like on a bad foot. I think it started off on a bad foot. It took me to sort of realize that, okay, this is not really what I wanted to then, like, although the perks of that was I got put on really big projects. So before I moved to data analytics, I was in really, really big audits and, for very important companies. And that can take a toll on you sometimes. So I spoke up about it. Like I said before, if you really wanted something and you just sort of know the right people to talk to, you will sort of get it. And for me, it was sort of speaking up about it that sort of made them go like, oh, why don't you try something new? And then since I moved to data analytics, my work-life balance has changed. Like, yeah, literally, like, I'm not even kidding. Like, it's so good, and just try, having the right people around you to sort of say, okay, I'm not doing well in terms of this much workload. Can I delegate this to someone else? Can I do something else? And they're very open about that at EY. So you have a counselor in EY. So your counselor wouldn't be your manager or like a senior within your team. It'll be someone else that you don't work with. And so just having that sort of relationship with your counselor is really good for that sort of reason. And I know there's bad stigma around, you know, work-life balance and finance. But EY is really trying to move forward with that. So like in EY, there's so many possible ways that you could, you know, try to sort of balance that. They allow you to take long-term leave. So say I have friends literally who just came back from Argentina because he took 7 weeks off to sort of like tour around South America and then come back. You wouldn't lose your job after it. You literally just need to say, I really want to travel. I really want to take this time. So I just need, you know, some time off for it. And yeah, that was fine. So for me, I'm happy with where it is and just the people around me. So yeah. And then I think I saw a question on the chat where it says, do you have stories related to inclusivity in like work culture, both good and bad stories, and context is, you know, nationality, ethnicity, with us being from Asia and Indonesian, how do they treat you, I guess, in the company? And for me, no bad experiences at all so far. So I mean, within EY, there's literally people from everywhere. We have a lot of people from the Philippines, a lot of people from like Pakistan, people who've moved around, you know, EY, like different EY countries, sort of like Australia, Canada, and they just sort of like come to EY UK for a bit. Yeah, they don't really look down on you. It is very, I would say, Caucasian heavy around the top. Sort of like, you know, if you like, a lot of the partners are, you know, from either here or somewhere else. Say like was like a leader in a lead partner in the US or something. But there are people who aren't from the UK or who aren't from sort of you know, Canada or the US or all the West countries that made it up. You know, there's obviously in Indonesia, there's lots of partners who are Indonesian, and those Indonesian partners in Indonesia would like work with like the UK partners, and you're basically in business together. So we're used to having people from different, you know, cities, and how people treat you day to day. That's literally just how you obviously treat them as well. So yeah.
Interesting. What about Kak Nadia in Amazon?
Plus one on that, I think Amazon is very diverse. We've got people similar to EY because of like the multinational nature of the company. We've got people from around the world. They've got businesses based in Singapore and Korea and Japan and China as well. So they're, you know, we work quite closely with those teams in Asia. So there wasn't any, I don't think I've come across any issues pertaining like my religious belief or my nationality. People are very respectful. People within my teams, I've got people from Brazil, from India, from China, from Japan as well. But yeah, in terms of like the leadership structure, very male and Caucasian heavy. I don't think it's an issue personally. Yeah. They don't look down on me. I've been in meetings where I had to convince them to fund my project, and they're happy to listen to me. They approve my projects without like say, you know, judging me because I'm a junior and I'm also not white or like not like a non-Muslim woman, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't think I've come across any bad experiences. They're very open. It's like going to an international school. So if you haven't got good experience in uni, dealing with international communities where people are very respectful, it's very similar to that.
Right, it's interesting. And maybe I just would like to add one more thing about the EDI, because apparently I'm taking the MSc in Human Resource Management, so I'm studying about all these as well. And it's just so interesting about EDI here in the UK that they actually have a regulation for that. So if you violate, then yeah, you'll have to face some kind of like law issues. But yeah, that's the regulation here in the UK. So I believe, yeah, the ones that you've just mentioned, it's valid. Okay, so we've got another question for Kak Tisha.
Yeah.
It's about the how do you innovate in a situation where you have to, you know, you have your own SOP, and then how do you kind of like maneuver in that situation?
Yeah. So, I mean, just going into that, especially in audit, obviously you have the accounting standards that you need to follow on, but audit is not really just looking at, oh, if they're reporting in line with the accounting standards. It's sort of, okay, the easier way I tell people who don't know what audit is sort of like if a company says they made revenue of 100 billion, we test samples to sort of check whether that is true. So like, are you actually making 100 billion in revenue? And we do a lot of analysis on that. And the way that you do these analysis, the way you sample, the way you test it, the way you ask questions, that's up to you. You know, when you're assigned to a task, say like, okay, so in an audit, usually you get assigned based on accounting area. So you could look at revenue, for example, you know, which I was. And revenue is usually a lot of like where fraud happens, you know, companies could overstate their revenue. And then so that obviously brings a lot of risk into it. And when you're working in those sort of projects, you need to like sort of sit down with yourself and be like, okay, I'm going to have a meeting with this financial director tomorrow to ask so and so questions. How do I make sure that that happens? You know, how do I get the right answers? How do I make sure that they come back to me with the right samples, the right testing sort of methods, things like that. Other than that, within EY, there's loads of things for you to do. It's not just within your job. You could be involved in EY CSR. So like we have like a corporate social responsibility sort of thing where I've done this before where I literally set up events to like schools around Manchester, and I sit down with 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds and they ask me questions about my job. Or like people from like before A levels, basically, sort of, you know, people in school like year 11 or like year 10s, who are about to sort of decide what they want to do for A levels. So I've put myself forward for that. You could do loads of different projects. So if you think you know, you're capable of say, oh, actually, besides audit, I kind of want to look into data for a bit, start coding things or make an app or whatever, you have this idea. There's always someone to talk to within EY who would be like, hey, you know what, that's a cool idea. Let's do it. Yeah, like I said before, it's just if you want to do something and you have the right people around you, you'll just get it, basically. And yeah, I saw a question as well about the graduate visas for PwC not accepting graduates anymore. As far as I just checked right now, there are still graduate schemes online on the EY Careers website. So I'm hoping that sort of answers their questions, that they still do hire graduates. Because I think with an EY, when I was in EY, they switched my visa directly over, so into a tier 2. So I'm not on the graduate visa, if that makes sense. And graduate visas didn't exist when I graduated. So I graduated in 2020. I was on a tier 4, and I needed to apply for a tier 2. That was so now my visa is a tier 2. It's not a graduate visa, if that makes sense. Cool.
All right. So I guess about the previous questions, simply put, you can always communicate with your managers, right?
Exactly.
You know, that's necessary. All right. Okay, we have a lot of questions. I mean, yeah. Wait, let me just double check real quick. Oh, we've got question for Kanadia about the e-commerce role at Amazon. So how hands-on are you? And are you making any changes to the website, or more like an e-commerce role without making any changes to the e-commerce platform? Oh, interesting. I think
Very good
this
question.
is right. What do you think?
I think in terms of hands-on, it solely depends on what projects you're working on. There are some internal, like just more optimizing projects where you just improve the current process that's already in place, just optimize it, make it better, automate it. And I guess in that case, you might be more hands-on because it's usually like easier to do. It's usually your idea and can push forward. And on other cases, there are projects where are really big, where they, for example, one of the biggest one is that they're trying to implement newer logistic solutions in order to increase shipments between Asia into the US, which requires a lot of 3PL, a lot of like logistics, warehouse integration. So that requires like a lot of people to work on it, like between ops, finance, legal, and also business teams. And I guess if you're in that kind of scale of a project, you might think you're not that hands-on because you're not actually out there shipping the products or talking to the 3PL to partner with them. But I guess if you look at on the other hand, you're still making changes, you're still a part of that project. Like your role there is still to improve it, to make it better. You from the business teams, you're still giving the opinions and the financial decisions to do it. So I guess that's also hands-on, even though you're not directly doing it, if that makes sense. So it just depends on how you look at it in terms of how hands-on are you. It does not really depend on levels, so it just depends on projects. So you can be a junior or graduate that you just start in Amazon. If you're lucky, you work on certain really big projects, you can be as hands-on as possible, if that makes sense.
Right.
In terms to the second part, are you making any changes to the website or more like an e-commerce rules without making changes? On the website, UI itself, it's not my team. That I'm in the Fulfilled by Amazon team. So my role and the projects that I work with is more onto the logistic solutions, how to get products within the Amazon FCs to get to the customer as soon as possible. So it's not something that people would usually, when they go to Amazon, they look at it. That's something that I do. Sadly enough, so it's not, people cannot see what I do. My work's more behind the scenes. Let's say, how do I make sure that UK selling partners still want to ship their stock into the EU, to make sure that our European customers can also get UK products on next day delivery? How do I do that? I try to negotiate or find the best rates with other 3PL that's not internally in Amazon to help them ship that. And then on the regulation side, I built a business case to convince let's say UK government to reduce the tax or work in certain tax brokers that can give discounts in order to encourage selling partners to do that shipment, for example. So those are kind of the focus. It's more behind the scene. It's not on the e-commerce, where you open Amazon, it's I was the one who made that campaign or made that banner, not that much. That's not my role. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
All right, thank you, Kanadia. So simply put, I would say that you're still making impact, right? Okay, so we have the last question for today. It's for Katisha. So how does the project team look like? Are you working in teams or are you an individual contributor as of now? Feel free.
So you always work in teams. I think the question is sort of related to audit. So when you start off in the graduate scheme, you're assigned sort of clients, they call it, sort of engagement. So you work on, say, a client, so say Chanel, right? So depending on how the audit is sort of segmented and segregated around sort of the work tasks, you could be the only, say, junior, and then you have a senior above you, and that senior actually might be on the graduate scheme. So to explain more around that is that when you start off in EY, you're basically a staff 1, and then you move up to your second year and you're a staff 2, and then on the third year, which is your last year of your graduate scheme, you're basically a senior 1. So in a team, you would literally have one staff 1s or 2 staff 1s, 2 staff 2s, maybe 2 senior 1s, and then a lead senior, maybe a senior 3 or a senior 2. And then you have your managers, assistant managers and above that. It just depends on the audit. So for the Chanel audit, for example, you have clothes and bags, and so you'll be divided based on that. So say bags would have Chanel bags audit would have 2 senior 2s and then maybe 3 staff to help them do stuff day to day, and then you have your lead senior above that, and then the assistant managers and up. There in the audit team that I worked on in my first year, I was, I think, one of the 3 staff 1 in the team, and then above me there were 3 staff 2s, and then so on and so forth, because that was a pretty big audit, and pretty much in the team there was about 22 people. Yeah, and so it's a very fun environment to work on, and then just on the graduate scheme itself, it feels like school it feels like uni because like I mentioned before, you still do take your certification. So like say if you want to you need to take your accountancy exams, you actually go to college. That's what they call it. So you go to like a separate building to like learn your stuff and take exams and you revise together and then basically after that, so say you do that for 2 weeks and you don't do any work at all on your study leave, and then you come back and you do like projects with some of the people that you meet in college. So that's how it works. Hopefully that answers your questions, but anything else, let me know.
Wow, this is like jaw-dropping. All right. I hope that answers your question. And I know in the beginning I've promised that we're gonna end at like 8:30, and then now we're like 8:32. But because everything that we've just discussed, it's just jaw-dropping for me. But does anyone have one last question, just in case, before we wrap up this session? Does anyone have it? Or if not, then we're going to move forward with the photo sessions. But wow, thank you so much, Kak Nadia, Kak Tisha. I mean, all these amazing insights, just like the theme of this webinar session, it's like industry insights. So it's just amazing. And I feel like I learned a lot from you guys. And you guys are like our role model, like who doesn't know Amazon? Who doesn't know EY? I feel like at one point we kind of want to be, part of the firm. And now that we've got a lot of insights, it's like, wow, it's just interesting. Okay, so it seems like there is no more questions. So in that case, we're going to move forward with the photo sessions, and I hope that everyone can turn on their camera, just for like a couple of seconds. We're going to take it very quickly. Okay, we've got Mastriski. Thank you for turning on to your camera. Do we have more people? Yes. Okay, come in. Just, for like a couple of minutes. Not more than 10 minutes, obviously. Nope. Okay. Oh, this is good and interesting. Oh, okay. Even if you're not at home, it's fine. It's fine. It shows that you guys are, somewhere here in this world, and then you've been participating this session. So amazing. Okay, someone wants to connect on LinkedIn. All right. So we've got more people who want to turn on their camera. Okay, so I guess it's just going to be us. It's all right. So perhaps Widya will help us with the photo sessions, and then we'll have to say goodbye to our incredible speakers, and we'll have to, wrap up the session, which I wish we can, prolong in the next couple of hours, but unfortunately it's Friday night, so so we won't take a lot of your time. All right, Widya, you ready?
Yes, let me take a few.
Okay, sure. Don't forget to smile, guys. Smile. Okay, so you're counting down?
Here. 1, 2, 3. Again. All right. I think that's all.
Okay. Is there anything you want to add, Widya, to this session, our second session?
I think it's all good for my end. Thank you, Sharon.
All right, it's all good then. So once again, thank you so much, Kak Nadia, Kak Tisha. Some of us, we want to connect with your LinkedIn. So I hope it's all right on your end.
Yes, of course.
And thank you so much to everyone that has joined this session. It's been a couple of hours, 1 hour actually, to be exact. But thank you so much for allocating your time once again. It's Friday night, and I hope that everyone has a good weekend. So yeah, looking forward for our next webinar session, I guess. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you for the insights.